Hello and welcome to a special edition of DNET, the Disability Network. I'm Bill McQueen. Thousands of Canadians now own small businesses, and many others are starting up their own business in search of new opportunities. But for most people, learning how to become self-employed is difficult. That's often because they lack the knowledge and skills to realize their dreams. Several months ago, the federal government started 4 pilot projects in Montreal, St. John's, Winnipeg, and Calgary to help people with disabilities learn how to become self-employed. For many, this is their chance to become self-sufficient for the first time. DNET's Ing Wong visited the project in Calgary to meet the participants and see how the project is working.
For many people with disabilities, owning their own business is just an idea. But now some people with disabilities can turn their ideas into a reality.
They're starting to come home now.
Under a new pilot project, disabled people spend a year learning how to start up their own businesses. Participants develop an idea into a viable business that will generate an income for them.
The integration of disabled people.
All the participants are on social assistance, but once the project is over, they should have jobs, working for themselves. The goal is to help people with disabilities make their own opportunities, instead of having to rely on money from the government. In Alberta, the project is geared towards natives with disabilities. The federal government and the Treaty 7 Economic Development Corporation work together to provide participants with support.
May I help you?
Yes, you know those books.
Joyce Jantz is the program consultant of the Self-Employment Assistance Pilot Project. She explains how the project started.
Thank you, Joy.
When we looked at the project, first it's self-employment. Secondly, the focus was on focusing in on people with disabilities and having them participate to find out if it's a reality, find out how we can change the program. Then secondly, we looked at the Native population in comparison to the rest of the population, and it turns out they have a higher disability rate per capita than the rest of the Canadian citizens. So we put the two together.
But there are other reasons the project focuses on natives with disabilities. Jim Skagg is a member of the board of directors overseeing the project. He says natives with disabilities have almost no chance of finding work on the reserves.
There's really no employment opportunities here on the reserve. There's very few businesses, one being the service station here, whom they hire, I think, 5 or 6 people. There's another service station across the tracks there. They hire 6 or 7 people, and I don't think there's really any room or consideration for hiring the disabled.
Natives with disabilities also face other barriers. Public transportation is non-existent in the Treaty 7 reserves. To travel long distances, people with disabilities have to rely on their own transportation. And then there's physical access. Only a few houses and buildings on reserves are accessible to people with disabilities. It's a problem that many natives with disabilities face, simply because up to now, no one has really looked at their issues.
It seems like an organization has to include within their policy to hire either disabled, native, otherwise we can never get into the workforce.
But natives with disabilities have been making efforts to join the workforce. One of them is Karen Big Tobacco. She's upgraded her skills by training as a short order cook, but so far it hasn't helped her find work in Calgary or even on her reserve. Like others who took the course, she expected to get on-the-job training after she finished her program, but that didn't happen.
After her training at State, she was supposed to go on a job training on the job, and she couldn't get it. She got fed up because she didn't have an interpreter there for her to help her, like, on the job. Like, she needed an interpreter to help her to cope with what was going on in the job.
Karen's situation is similar to many other natives with disabilities. They need support services in order to work, but have little or no access to them. So many natives with disabilities, unable to find the support they need in order to work, end up on social assistance. But becoming self-employed may help some of them get off social assistance. And for many others, it may be the best way to find a job.
There's a lot of opportunities out there, and it's just a matter of
Bob Bone is a business
fine-tuning
analyst
their
for the Treaty
ideas
7
and
Economic
developing
Development
realistic
Corporation.
plans.
He advises the SEA participants while they're developing their business.
Well, I think it gives them an opportunity, just like anyone else, to enter the labor market or to develop their own business ideas. And if they have the capabilities and the potential is there, then I don't see why they shouldn't do it. Everyone else is doing it. They should take advantage of their ideas.
The opportunities right now probably come more in being self-employed, starting up their own business. That even goes beyond those with disabilities, but what we're focusing in and thinking very positive on is getting this particular group with a disability and letting them set the standard or set the stage for others with disabilities that this can in fact be done.
Find that a lot of the stuff
When we come back, we'll meet someone who's turning an idea into an enterprise.
What about your prayer that you teach us every night at supper time?
Cheryl Big Plume lives in the Tsuut'ina Nation just outside Calgary.
You gotta say.
She's been an artisan for the past 10 years, making crafts for other people. She's now starting up a business that will promote Native artwork.
My goal is to market and distribute Native commodities and to make sure that people know exactly where they've come from, where, you know, we want to make biographies on all of our artists, our craftspeople, so that it's being well recognized. We had sold some stuff last year, and a gentleman that he was talking to a lady about the stuff he had purchased, and standing there watching him, and the stuff he told her had nothing to do with what he purchased. And then I thought to myself, well, you know, that's, you know, we could stop that by doing a little legend and a biography on the product and the designer, and, you know, so that people would know what its origin was, who made it, why it was made.
Cheryl had an idea for a new venture. She had realized earlier that working for someone else wasn't for her.
I was a secretary. I was a receptionist. Those jobs were really fulfilling, but it wasn't what I wanted. I did them to pass the time, to get by for my family, but I always had the feeling that I didn't belong there. There was something else there, different for me, that I needed to fulfill, and with this program, I found a lot of satisfaction that I never found when I was working. I mean, I could go to school and be trained to become whatever I want to, but what I want to do is to open up a company of my own with the Native products.
So when the opportunity came up, she decided to take a chance, but it wasn't an easy decision to make.
It was about a year ago when I realized that, you know, I could make a lot more of what I was doing, but I just didn't know how to go about doing it. And then Treaty 7 gave me the opportunity to do that. It was a really hard decision for me to make, because I had just gained employment with the nation here, and I had to make the choice as to whether to stay with the nation or leave and attempt to do this for myself, for my children, for my family. Took a lot of tossing and turning and sleepless nights to say, yes, I'm going to do it.
But once Cheryl realized that she wanted to start her own business, there was no turning back. She's had to learn a lot of new skills in order to turn her concept into a reality.
I wasn't thinking of the paperwork part of it. I was thinking about the production part of it and the people from bringing in the people from the different places to do the different works and checking into the quality and the quantity of stuff. That was my part of it. I had already geared around that, but then when I got into the program, then I realized how much reading I had to do. I had to go into do reading on marketing, on distribution, on time management. That was a good one because I never, with my girls and having a family and that, it's you really have to learn to manage your time and to make sure that everything's being done, what you put together. I don't set unrealistic goals like I did 6 weeks ago. When I first came into the program, I had this big long list of, I bet you, about 40 things I had to do in one day, and there was no way that coming home to my kids and then having to leave again, and I thought, well, we have to work around that somehow. So time management was a good part of learning part of it. And then I've been doing research into different kinds of programs to take to better myself. So it's been quite a journey in the past 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Look at this.
Leave it.
It's a continuous learning process, one that Cheryl believes will help her create a viable business that educates the public about Native people.
What I plan to do in the future will be mass purchasing and distribution of Native commodities. We want to be able to get into the market and say, look, we have original, authentic Native collections here. They all have, a history and an origin. And get a lot of this stuff out. What would you call it? Prefab materials because there is a lot of, I've seen a lot of stuff that was part of my research, was to go into all the different stores that I could think of to look at Native work. There is a lot of stuff out there that's beadwork, leather work, but it's not Native. Seeing people purchase stuff nowadays, they say it's Native, but there's more to the word Native. There are the Stonies, the Sarsis, the Crees, the Blackfoot, and there's such a wide range of it, and every one of them has a different style, a different technique of doing things. And I think it's important that people know and that it be recognized that there are different ways of doing it, that each culture has a different styles, different beadworks. Different outfits originate from different tribes, and I think it's important that people know that.
Cheryl also wants to show that people with disabilities can be independent.
I'm hoping that it will bring recognition of independence, stability, and also bring out a lot of positive energies for people, to let people know that even though we're handicapped, we're still capable of accomplishing things. I think that's really important.
Clifford Twigg is also a participant in the Self-Employment Assistance Program, and he's a member of the Aboriginal Disabilities Society of Alberta. He's starting up a wheelchair repair service, similar to ones found in many city centers. Clifford hopes his business will help other people with disabilities become more independent.
I plan on going onto the reserve, going right to the person who has a disability and providing a service right there. I'll just bring the chair out, go into my truck, fix it up, and they can have it the same day. Whereas before, we had to wait for almost 3 weeks to get our chair back. and sometimes there was almost a month. There's another general area I really wanted to get into was just to start really looking at the disabled children, because most of the time they're not properly fitted for their chairs, and the parents end up bringing them their chairs back. So I really wanted to really work just in that area of handicapped children to really provide a really adequate services.
Clifford came up with this idea several years ago, shortly after he became disabled.
It was just past my birthday I came up with the idea of trying to get a business going, because I was already looking at long-range plans after hearing about disability from Tom Russell. He's a walking quad, and he told me that he's been having a lot of problems, funding, employment, and all that. So I said, well, if I'm going to be successful in 10 years' time, I might as well come up with a business plan, whereas I can be self-sufficient in, let's see, 4 years down the road from now. At that time, I didn't know of any grants available to a disabled person who can start up a business. Like, there was nothing out there 5 years ago, and I wasn't even aware of anything like that. To get proper funding, to start up your business, to get some grants to buy your equipment.
But now people like Clifford have a way to get their business started. The Treaty 7 Economic Development Corporation is supporting him and the other participants reach their goals.
Doesn't matter what it is.
And according to Keith McDonald, manager of the corporation, helping people start new enterprises has long-term benefits.
Anytime you can get people off of social assistance or unemployment insurance and feeling good about themselves, meaning they're being self-sufficient and being productive and keeping busy, I don't think you can ask for more than that. So I think it's dollars well spent.
Ever since I got hurt, I've always relied on programs. Any kind of program where I can get by. I see myself with this program, I'm going to be self-sufficient. I won't have to rely on government, provincial or federal or the tribal government for money. I can create my own money and also providing jobs for able-bodied people.
The spin-off effects are great in these small communities. If somebody starts up a business and starts generating income, that income more likely will stay on the reserves, which means that there is additional dollars on the reserves, which has spin-off effects with the other businesses on the reserves. So it's not as though we're only helping the individual client with the disability and their families, but there's certainly spin-off effects that have to be considered as well.
I like the idea of being independent, more independent, because I am independent, but to be more independent and to be available for other people who are attempting to do the same thing, or other people who do have native stuff that they want marketed and put out there, because there's so many designers out there that have unlimited abilities to do things, but they don't know how to go about getting their stuff started.
Because we are able to work together. And
While there are many long-term benefits to the program, in the meantime, other issues have to be looked at, such as what will happen to the participants after their year of training is up.
I'd like to see it, I guess, ongoing, like for, get more people involved and I guess an aftercare for the existing program, like the people that are involved, get someone to come out and talk to these people and tell them, if there's any difficulties that they're encountering, see how we can better the program, get some input from these people as to not just on a monthly basis, maybe on a weekly basis.
And then there's the future of the program. It's a 52-week pilot project with 9 participants. At this time, there are no plans to expand it.
Disabled members I'd really like to see 5 years from now that the self-employment assistance project really help out the disabled. Coming from a Native standpoint, we haven't really been recognized as entrepreneurs or people who are always on the go and all that. We're recognized as people who are just at home, not doing anything, reading books, watching television. So we just have to create that awareness. And by this project now they have going, I hope that these government officials will recognize that we do have the potential to run our own business, that we can be self-sufficient.